I shouldn't have let him touch me that night. But when his fingertip brushed against my palm, slow, deliberate, and knowing, it was as if the language my marriage once spoke suddenly came alive again. The hotel bar was dim, alive with jazz and golden light. My glass of Chardonnay was half empty, my heart completely hollow. And there he was, Ethan, not the kind of man who needed to speak to be heard. His eyes did enough of that. His silence felt like an invitation I'd been waiting on for years. "You look like you've been waiting to be listened to," he'd said softly, resting his elbow on the counter, watching me like I was both trouble and poetry. My lips parted, but words refused to come. His fingertip grazed mine again as he took the napkin from under my glass, and in that tiny touch, something cracked open inside me. The married woman in me screamed stop. But the forgotten woman whispered, "Please, don't." Before I continue, if you're listening to this, backhand index pointing right, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Because what I'm about to confess isn't just about betrayal, it's about how a touch can translate what years of marriage forgot to say. I met Ethan 3 months ago, at a charity event my husband couldn't attend. He was a volunteer photographer, young, charming, effortlessly confident. I remember laughing at his dry humor, the kind I hadn't heard from my husband in years. It wasn't the laughter that got me though, it was how he looked at me when I wasn't looking at him. Every married woman knows that look, the one that reminds her she's still visible. That she still exists beyond the chores, the routine, the silence. When he texted me the next day, it wasn't flirtation. It was curiosity. Connection. And I told myself it was innocent, until it wasn't. The bar that night wasn't planned. He'd been in town, I'd been restless, and somehow our paths crossed again, or maybe we both let them. He told me he'd been thinking about me. I told him not to. Then I smiled. He saw the lie in that smile before I could hide it. "Then let me think of your hands instead," he whispered, reaching for my fingers again. "They're easier to forget, right?" His touch was heat and language, one my husband no longer spoke. That gentle stroke of his thumb over my wrist said everything a decade of marriage forgot how to express. "I see you. I want you. I understand you." And when his fingertip lingered just a second too long, I realized I was already lost, not in lust, but in the comfort of being remembered. That night, I didn't go home right away. I sat in my car for hours, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror, lipstick smudged, guilt curling inside my chest, but my pulse, alive. It wasn't supposed to mean anything. But it did. It meant that somewhere between marriage and loneliness, I'd found a man whose silence spoke louder than all the promises I'd stopped believing. And I wish. The fingertip spoke the language marriage forgot. That's how it started that night, silent, fluent, and forbidden. His touch carried no words, yet it spoke everything my husband had stopped saying years ago. Each brush of his thumb across my wrist told me "I see you," each slow trail along my skin whispered "I still desire." Hi everyone, before I go deeper, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and turn on your notifications if you believe silence sometimes speaks louder than words. Now, let's go back to that night. The bar light was low, the kind that flatters sins and hides intentions. I sat there with my untouched drink, pretending not to watch him. But when he leaned forward, his scent folded around me, bourbon and a hint of recklessness. His fingers brushed mine, an accident that lingered too long to be one. That simple touch awakened a language I thought I'd forgotten, one my marriage never taught me to pronounce. It was the grammar of pulse, breath, and yearning. He didn't ask my name. He just watched me, and in that gaze, I felt both accused and adored. I should have pulled back. I should have remembered the wedding band biting my skin. But instead, I let my hand stay there, beneath his, where the warmth of betrayal began to bloom. "You look like someone waiting to be understood," he said. I smiled, but inside, something broke and something else began. He spoke softly, his voice grazing the edges of my restraint. "Does he ever listen to you?" I looked down at my drink. "He used to." He leaned closer. "Then let me." And right there, the air between us changed. He wasn't promising love, only attention, something rarer than affection in a loveless home. The fingertips that had once held loyalty now trembled with lust. Every second we spent not touching felt like a betrayal of time itself. When his hand found my knee, it wasn't an invitation. It was possession disguised as comfort. My body answered a question my conscience didn't want to hear. Somewhere in the middle of that stolen hour, I realized something. We weren't speaking the language of love. We were translating loneliness into desire. So if you're watching this, remember. Loneliness doesn't always cry. Sometimes, it kisses. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and tell me in the comments if you've ever spoken the language marriage forgot. Because that night, his fingertips didn't just touch me. They rewrote me. His fingers traced me like a language only my skin could understand. Every movement was fluent, confident, forbidden. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't want to be translated, I wanted to be devoured. He didn't speak much that evening. The silence between us was louder than anything I'd heard in years of marriage. It was the silence that says I see you. I want you. I know you're scared, but I'll still touch you anyway. And he did. I remember the scent of bourbon from his breath mixing with the faint perfume I'd sprayed hours earlier. He pressed his thumb against my chin, forcing my eyes to meet his. Then, softly, like a confession whispered in a church of sin, he said, "You look like someone who hasn't been truly touched in a while." That line, God, that line broke something inside me. Because he was right. My husband's touch had become duty. Predictable. Timed. Lacking that tremor that once made my breath quiver. But this stranger, this dangerous man whose fingertips burned through my dress, was writing new chapters across my body. Every brush of his skin rewrote my vows in languages my soul had forgotten existed. Guys, if you're still here, my voice whispered like a secret meant for late-night listeners, don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe for more real confessions of the heart. What you're hearing is truth, unfiltered and unapologetic. I don't know when I stopped thinking and just fell. Fell into his rhythm. Fell into his mouth. Fell into the part of myself that wanted to feel alive again. He undressed my hesitation like he already knew its shape. Every sigh, every shiver, was an answer to a question he didn't need to ask. When his lips reached my shoulder, I didn't think of sin, or vows, or guilt. I thought of how warmth could feel holy again. How lust could sound like prayer. It wasn't about cheating anymore. It was about remembering what passion felt like when it wasn't scheduled or rehearsed. Remembering that I was more than a wife, more than a mother, I was a woman who still had flames left in her. And as his hands explored me like a map drawn in heat and hunger, I knew. I wasn't lost. I was rediscovering the parts of me marriage had left buried under routine and silence. By the time he whispered my name, I'd already surrendered. Not just to him, but to the truth. That sometimes, it takes another man's touch to remind you what it means to feel alive. The morning after him felt like a sermon I wasn't prepared to attend. The air in my bedroom was heavy, not with the sweetness of passion, but with the bitter perfume of guilt. My sheets, my skin, even my breath carried traces of him, and yet, my heart whispered for more. I lay there, staring at the ceiling fan rotating above me, slow and deliberate, just like his fingers had been the night before. I could still feel the echo of his touch, the way he traced my curves as if trying to memorize the lines of my sin. And I hated that it still made me shiver. It wasn't supposed to happen again. After all, we both knew where the boundary lines were drawn. He was just supposed to make me feel alive for a moment, not rewrite the entire script of my marriage. But now, every touch from my husband felt like a question mark, and every text from him felt like a confession waiting to happen. I kept hearing his words from that night. You don't have to speak. I can hear everything from your body. And he did. His fingers spoke fluently, a language my marriage had long forgotten. A language of care, of curiosity, of quiet storms. I was guilty, yes, but in that guilt, I found grace. Because for once, I was seen. Not as a wife. Not as a mother. But as a woman. Still, guilt is a clever poison. It doesn't kill you instantly, it sips your soul slowly. I could feel it gnawing through my days, whispering questions I couldn't answer. Was it worth it? Would I do it again? The truth? I didn't know. But I did know that every time I passed a mirror, I didn't just see me. I saw a version of myself that refused to die quietly in routine. I saw the woman he woke up. The woman who dared to want again. And so, here I am, telling you, not to glorify what happened, but to confess. Because sometimes guilt and grace were the same perfume. Before I go on, if you're still listening, if this story stirred something inside you, maybe a thought you've been too scared to say aloud, I want you to hit like, share, and subscribe. There's more to tell. More secrets that deserve to breathe. Because my story didn't end with his fingers, it began with them. I woke up that morning tangled between warmth and conscience. His scent was still on my pillow, wild, musky, unfiltered passion. The sunlight cut through the blinds, striking his face softly like an angel caught in sin. I should have felt disgusted. But instead, I felt empty without his touch. My fingers traced the edge of the sheet, still remembering how his fingertips had drawn circles over my skin last night, whispering a language my marriage forgot. A language made of breath, pulse, and ache. I didn't plan for this. I didn't plan for him. You're quiet again, he murmured, voice thick from sleep. I'm thinking, I replied softly. About him? I looked away. About me. He sat up, the sheet falling from his body, revealing the same strength that broke me and rebuilt me all at once. I wanted to speak, to say I couldn't keep doing this, but my lips betrayed me again. They found his before my mind could resist. That kiss, long, deep, and desperate, was not love. It was confusion wearing love's perfume. He whispered against my mouth, "You always come back." And I whispered back, "Because you remind me what it feels like to be wanted." Midway through, let me pause and remind you. Kiss mark if you're still listening, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share this story with someone who understands the language of forbidden affection. Because sometimes, the stories we keep silent are the ones that burn the loudest. I pulled away, breathing unevenly. I can't keep doing this, I said, eyes searching for a moral compass that wasn't there. He touched my chin, gently. You already have. The room fell quiet, except for the sound of our hearts racing toward another mistake. Somewhere between the sheets, right and wrong lost their names. It wasn't cheating anymore. It was survival. It was addiction. It was us. When he left that morning, I sat alone on the edge of the bed, wrapped in his scent and my guilt. My reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger, a woman torn between the illusion of loyalty and the craving for something real. I realized then. It wasn't his fingers that betrayed my marriage. It was my loneliness, camouflaged as desire. And though I promised myself I'd never answer his late-night calls again. When my phone buzzed that night, I didn't hesitate. I answered. Because sometimes, confusion beneath the sheets feels safer than clarity in the cold. His touch still lingers on my skin like a secret perfume I never washed off. It's strange, isn't it? How one man's fingertip could awaken a language my whole marriage forgot to teach me, a language that didn't need words, only sighs, trembling breaths, and the kind of closeness that made my heartbeat lose its rhythm. I remember that night, the last night, the one that changed everything and ended nothing. The room was painted in amber light, shadows swaying like our confessions. His hand brushed across my collarbone, tracing invisible promises. I whispered his name, not as a word, but as a prayer that refused to die in silence. And when he kissed me, my world paused. Every nerve in my body stood at attention, begging, trembling, surrendering. My moans weren't noise, they were stories, each one saying, "I'm alive again." My ring still glimmered faintly under that soft light, a symbol of a love that had stopped listening long before my soul started speaking again. Somewhere in between those gasps and stolen breaths, I knew, this wasn't just infidelity. It was rediscovery. It was my resurrection from emotional starvation. And yet, the morning came with guilt stitched to my lips. The sun exposed every truth we tried to keep beneath the sheets. He smiled, that same disarming smile that once made me forget the world, and whispered, "You deserve to feel. Even if it burns." Maybe that's what love really is, a fire that consumes and cleanses at once. So here I am, telling you, yes, you listening right now, don't judge me, just understand me. My story isn't about sin, it's about silence breaking. About finding myself in a touch that didn't belong to me, but somehow, healed me. If you've ever loved wrong, if you've ever needed more, if your heart ever whispered for something your life couldn't give, then you already know my truth. Kiss Mark before you leave, hit that subscribe button, share this story with someone who still believes in passion after pain. Tap the red heart if you've ever been touched so deeply that words failed you. And drop a comment, tell me, have you ever been spoken to by a fingertip? Because mine still speaks. Even now.